Sir, ma'am, and any genetically engineered life forms that happen to be wandering by, there appears to be a new podcast in the download tubes. Hello and welcome to the Fully Charged Show podcast. And before you get really depressed about the fact that it's only me, just Robert Llewellyn talking to you once again, logistics have got the better of us. Jonny Smith is currently in an unspecified location, test driving an unspecified electric car along an unspecified road. In fact, I actually don't know where he is. Don't quite know where he is. I know it's somewhere in a nearby other country. I expect the weather's better than it is here because it's lousy here. So, as you're possibly aware, this episode is late. It's all my fault. Don't blame the team. They do their very best trying to manage a rank amateur like me. The frustration for me, really, is that there is a never-ending torrent of news and launches and product breakthroughs and new discoveries that we could explore, discuss, and even shoot episodes about. We could do it every day. We could have a 24-hour rolling news show, Jonny and I sitting behind desks. We'd never run out of topics. I think you'd all be bored senseless. So anyway, we just don't have the time and the budget, and I'm just going to try now to catch up on a few interesting stories right here, right now. Now, Dyson. You all know about Dyson. A bit of a flurry of news about Dyson's electric cars. Last year we heard a lot about them. Some amusing Photoshop memes did the rounds at the time. A Dyson vacuum cleaner with a steering wheel and a go faster stripe, that kind of thing. Funny, very funny. What will the Dyson electric car look like? No one knows. No one's seen it. They're running a very tight ship, but they are clearly very serious about it. I'd kind of forgotten because, it was August last year. They announced a £200 million investment. That's 220 million euros, or about the same in dollars, which they're spending on a site called Hallavington Airfield in Wiltshire, which is not a million miles from where I live, in the south of England, where they're setting up 6 test driving tracks with a total length of 17 kilometres for their yet-to-be-revealed electric cars. Notice the plural there. There's more than 400 employees of the Dyson automotive team are already working at the once disused airfield. Now, I drove past it not that long ago and had a quick sticky beak through the fence. You can't see anything. It's a huge old World War II airfield, abandoned airfield. I didn't see any vacuum cleaners with steering wheels, but I did notice 3 very large buildings are being constructed. That's all you can see, really. I didn't notice a kind of, incredibly fast, cool electric car driving past or anything as exciting as that. So that's all been in the public domain for some time, what they're doing at Hallavington. Although Dyson are being very cagey about what they're developing. I had a chat last year, that was late last year, I had a chat with an engineer, chance meeting, with a Dyson engineer who works at this site and who told me, strictly off the record, so I shouldn't be saying anything about this, but I've now read it in electrive.com. They are developing 3 different cars. That's what he told me that as well, the engineer. He said, I can't tell you anything. Brilliant conversation. I can't tell you anything. I said, don't tell me anything. I'm not that bothered. He went, no, seriously, I can't tell you anything about the 3 cars we're developing. And I said, 3 cars? He said, yeah, but I didn't say that. It's off the record. So anyway. So I still don't know anything about the electric cars, but here's a bit of news I hadn't noticed until today, and it was the news actually broke last year. I've just suddenly come across this story. So a couple of years back, longer ago than when I found this out, a couple of years back, and this is what alerted the world to Dyson's intentions. They bought a solid-state battery company called Sakti3, which was a spin-off of a company that launched out of Michigan University in the USA. Solid-state batteries. Oh, yes, solid-state batteries. Solid-state batteries. Massive energy density increase. Unlimited charges and discharges using common, readily available, cheap materials. Without question, the solid-state battery is the holy grail of electric car technology, we hoped. So Dyson forked over 46 million quid to buy SAC-T3. Now that is a lot of hand dryers that blow water all over your trousers and frighten young children. But it seems from their recent financial report that they've written off this investment, which can only lead you to think it's all gone a bit Pete Tong as regards SAC-T3's solid-state battery dream. I mean, that's quite a lot of money to write off, isn't it? 43 million quid. I mean, Dyson's very rich. And obviously he's building the cars in Singapore. You know, because, I mean, he's a keen supporter of the B word. I don't even want to talk about that. But, of course, he's actually building the cars outside the UK, even though he's a great supporter of British sovereignty and independence. Anyway, we don't really know what's going on, but the plan that I remember hearing about a while ago was that the Dyson was going to release one lithium-ion powered battery car and two other models with solid-state batteries, and they may still do that, but it's clearly there's some kind of problem with the technology. I mean, it's not surprising. And large shovel loads of salt are always needed when hearing about battery breakthroughs. Oh my God, have I learnt that the hard way. Anyway, next year, whatever happens with Dyson, I mean, they're going to bring out an electric car, there's no doubt about it, as are, I'm sure, Apple. I'm sure Apple will do it as well. There's these kind of big splurges of news and people write about it and get all excited and then it goes quiet. Meanwhile, actual engineers who actually build things are actually working to develop it. So next year, I mean, Dyson, VW, Honda, Toyota, Aston Martin, Seat, I mean, hundreds of electric cars are being launched next year. And there is all sorts of arguments about why they're waiting till next year. And it's got a lot to do with tax and with incentives in countries and with increased restrictions on certain types of vehicles in cities, which we'll get to in a moment. But they're all launching electric cars next year, ones we might actually be able to buy, as opposed to ones that exist now, but there's a 12 to 14 month waiting list, which I was ranting about the other night on Fully Charged, the video YouTube show. I get confused. This is the podcast. I should just call the other thing, that's just called the Fully Charged show. You don't need to specify that it's a visual thing. Anyway, sorry. But it's all very confusing and you have to take the long view. This transition is happening, but I can remember saying years ago it's going to be painful, and it is painful. There's a lot of distress and disturbance. And yes, I mentioned Toyota on that list because I don't have any inside knowledge of their 100% battery electric offering other than they have said they're bringing one to market in 2020, next year. But in the latest news episode of Fully Charged, I discussed the not-so-clever self-charging hybrid advertising nonsense. Oh, my tweet stream overfloweth. It's been a never-ending battle of wits and words between irate electric car drivers and Toyota's battered PR machine. I mean, the way I see it, the Prius was a brilliant car. It really was. I mean, you know, you could argue it still is. Toyota's hybrid technology was the best and most popular, and it was a brilliant bridging technology, but it is, at the end of the day, a petrol car or a gasoline car. And it might use less petrol or gasoline than an equivalent-sized car that hasn't got hybrid technology. It's a boring argument anyway. The advert will disappear soon enough, and I can't be bothered to talk about it. But really, I still think they've shot themselves in the foot, particularly the advert, the bit in the advert that has got everyone's goat it's about 30 frames. It's about a second and a half of an image of a man waiting by an electric car as it charges, and he looks at his watch. I hadn't actually noticed the detail of that. He looks at his watch to say, oh, how long have I got to wait for this car to charge? Meanwhile, a Prius, no, it's actually an Auris hybrid, zooms past. Obviously got no problems with that because it's burning petrol or gasoline. Moving on, ULEZ. I'm sorry, is that an offensive term? No. ULEZ, it stands for Ultra Low Emission Zone, and it's just been introduced in central London this very week. It has, of course, annoyed some people. Well, I mean, people who get angry on Twitter, and they specifically blame the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan. But no, not because he's a Muslim. Don't say that. No, don't jump to that conclusion just because they hate him with a visceral fury because, well, make up your own mind. Anyway, it's not as if one bloke said, right, we're introducing stringent new laws to reduce toxic and illegal levels of air pollution in the middle of London because I said so. I don't think that's how local democracy works. Correct me if I'm wrong. It could be that he's a massive dictator. So I think they kind of decided, after doing a lot of research, and a huge amount of stuff has been going on with air quality in London. I mean, it is disgusting 9/10 of the time. It smells, London, it does. It actually stinks of diesel. It's bloody horrible, excuse my French. They kind of decided that the air quality in London is so dreadful they needed to do something about it. For starters, I mean, let's just put this out there. If you drive a private car around the centre of London, you must want to move really slowly. You can walk across central London quicker than you can drive. Average speeds in London on the roads are now the same as they were 150 years ago when we used horses. It is bonkers, isn't it? I mean, all you do when you drive around London is sit in a traffic jam. When we went, that's a few years ago, when we did a review of the first generation Kia Soul EV, the launch was held in a really swanky hotel in Soho in central London. Very cool. The cars were parked in a little sort of old courtyard right in the middle of London. And we got in the car and we started driving. And an hour later, literally, I'm not making this up, an hour later, we were a mile away from where we started. So we were driving at 1 mile an hour average speed because all the roads in the centre of London are jammed to the gunnels. So it's bonkers. If you drive a delivery vehicle for a large company, they should start using electric vans straight away. And many already do, which is really good. And there's loads of other delivery systems that are being developed, like pedal assist, cargo bikes. Brilliant. You do see a lot of those in London. We're actually going to be doing some reviews of some really cool, new, developed, lightweight, small, because everyone's getting stuff delivered, aren't they? It's obvious. So we need different solutions to that. And also electric taxis, which you see more and more of those in London now. But they look like the old London cabs, but they're brilliant. They're much more comfortable. We've reviewed them on Fully Charged, of course, because we review everything on Fully Charged because we're brilliant. Oh, that's annoying. Oh, yes. Do you know what that was? I'm going to tell you. I thought I'd turn the sound off. I have now. That was Ford. I went to an event in Amsterdam last week which was announcing the electrification of the Ford range, which it kind of did. A brilliant Ford Transit, really big transit van, coming in 2021. Of course, you don't want to bring it out too soon because you've still got to sell all the diesel ones. No, I'm sorry, I'm being very cynical. Brilliant electric. That was the only fully electric vehicle. All the rest are, as they described them, I'm not making this up, as Ford described them at the presentation, mild or self-charging hybrids. I'll leave that there for you. I wasn't overwhelmed with the Ford launch, but they are bringing out, and this is their description again, which I was hoping to see, but I didn't, a Mustang-inspired 100% electric performance vehicle next year, or even later this year. I think it's going to be unveiled quite soon. But that was him reminding me that he'd sent me an email. So he'd sent me a text to remind me they're sending him in. They're very keen, Ford. I'll hand them that. They're very keen. They just need to actually make some electric cars. Anyway, so electric taxis. Now, I've spoken to a total of 3, because I don't normally get taxis, believe it or not, even though I live in an elitist walled garden bubble of hyper privilege, apparently, and I'm a libtard. Anyway, I don't often get taxis, but I've got them deliberately to talk to the taxi drivers about. And when I've seen one of the electric taxis and I get the chance, whee, taxi, and I get in the back, they're really comfortable, much nicer than the old diesel rattling filthy things that we've had for years. And out of those 3, all 3 much preferred driving it. No question of that. No one argued with that. One of them really moaned on. He hates Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London, for reasons that have got nothing to do with the man's religion. It's all to do with the fact there isn't enough rapid chargers. And he's absolutely right. There aren't enough. The taxi drivers really need some serious rapid charging facilities. But that said, so there was one who was really moaning about it. The other two were kind of, it would be good to have more chargers, but I'll tell you what, I'm spending a lot less on fuel. They all admitted that. They all three could charge them at home when they get home at night, because generally taxi drivers don't live in the middle of London, they live outside in the suburbs. And they have to drive them in, first of all. And one of them has worked out that if he drives it into London using the little petrol engine, this is a range extended hybrid, the London taxis, brilliant machine, made in the UK. Not made in Singapore, no, made in Coventry, which is brilliant. There's a lot of them. They're really getting common now, but they love them. They're saving a huge amount on fuel. Obviously, when they're running around in the centre of London, they're not using their petrol engines. The range extender kicks in after they've done 70 miles, which if you can achieve 70 miles in central London, you've been driving for hours. But they really do need a lot more charging, but they are about, I'm not going to exaggerate now, but they're about 1,000,000% better than the old diesel rattlers. 1,000,000%, I think that's a fair assessment. Well, London also needs more electric buses, because I think people rightly complain, I can't drive my big diesel van in now without paying all this money, but there's loads of diesel buses in London, which is true, and it's really, really out of order. They should change those. They're an utter disgrace in the 21st century. Yes, I know the new ones cost a lot of money, but they do exist and they're already running on some routes. There's electric double-deckers running through London, red double-deckers, classic. Now, just a quick aside, because I know we shouldn't compare the crumbling democracy that we live in with the communist dictatorship in China. But the city of Shenzhen has no diesel buses. This is a city of 12 million people, so slightly bigger than London. It's got no diesel buses at all, but it does have 16,300 buses running on its streets, and they're all electric now, today. So, I'm just saying it can be done. Okay, what we need to do is let Sadiq Khan take over as a communist dictator of the whole country and impose electric buses on poor, hard-working families. So, clearly the ULEZ, the ultra-low emission zone, wasn't introduced on a whim. It's not an example of virtue signalling or to impose extra tax on hard-working families. Poor hard-working families catch the tube or the bus or ride bikes, for goodness sake. They don't drive big cars around the centre of London. That is rich people who drive big cars around the centre of London, and they don't care about anyone else because they buy massive diesel SUVs. The West End of London is choked with massive 3-ton tank cars, people driving their kids to school in a great big stupid thing. I can't even talk about it. This ultra-low emission zone has been introduced because of genuine concern for the health of 99% of the population who aren't sitting in an air-conditioned 3-ton diesel SUV, you big rich and people have to walk along the streets and breathe in toxic air because of combustion engines chugging away. It's just not. Anyway, I want to do a good news story. Now, I've been rattling on recently about the difficulties big old car making companies have when it comes to transitioning from making dirty, clanking old inefficient combustion engines to making super smooth, powerful electric drive systems. Anyone notice any bias in that statement? Good, because there is some. Anyway, Mercedes, who are very good at making diesel engines that cheat. Just saying, Volkswagen aren't the only ones. Not their cars, their delivery vans. Yeah, that story hasn't really ever got out, but they're not clean. Just to underline the fact that there's no such thing as a clean diesel engine. They're all filthy dirty. Anyway, Mercedes are in the process of changing one of their old engine plants that made old engines in the city of Esslingen in Germany. They're transitioning it from making combustion engines to making electric drive systems for their cars and vans. Not only that, they are building a 12,000 square metre battery manufacturing plant next door so they can build their entire vehicles themselves all in one place. It's all very low carbon. The way that the factory is powered, they're going for a zero carbon option. Even the way the building is being built. It's very interesting. 12,000 metres sounds quite big, doesn't it? It's almost the size of my kitchen. It is, and my kitchen isn't really that big, just in case you're wondering. But to put it in perspective, the Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada is 1 million square metres. So, it's not that big. And while I'm mentioning ridiculously big battery plants, the Tesla Gigafactory 3 in China is nearing completion and will be nearly as big as the Tesla Gigafactory 1 in Nevada. So they are really going for it. What I want to know now is, because it's only just dawned on me now, because I've just read a report about the Tesla Gigafactory 3 under construction in China will be finished in May. They only started building it in December. They're not wasting time. My God, it's unbelievably huge. But where's Tesla Gigafactory 2? Comments, please, on the new website that's coming soon, but it isn't ready yet. Yeah, because I don't even know where the Tesla Gigafactory 2 is. There's a Tesla Gigafactory in Nevada and there's Tesla Gigafactory 3 in China. Anyway, there's probably a 2 somewhere, but they're keeping it hidden. But back to Mercedes. At least they are making steps to transition, retraining their staff, and they have enormous support from the city. Now, this is an important point. Dr. Jürgen Zeiger, the Lord Mayor of the city of Esslingen, is very happy about this transition because, you see, the city is an old university city. It's a university has been there for many years, and it focuses on not only electrical engineering, but specifically electrical engineering. So there is a ready-made workforce already being trained. They're really good at training engineers in Germany. They're really good at respecting. If you're an engineer in Germany, it's like a respected profession. It's like being a doctor or I'm trying to think of another respected profession. Real estate agent, no. TV presenter, definitely not. Who else? Social worker, police officer. It's respected by some people. I respect the police. They do a really important job. So anyway, they're really respected. And, I don't know how, they're training a lot of engineers in Germany. I do not know how their economy gets by with so few media studies students. Sorry. That's probably a joke that only makes me laugh. It won't make anyone else laugh. I'm going to say that again. I don't know how their economy gets by with so few media studies students. Now, okay, it's easy to mock. It's a very easy thing to mock media studies students. There's a lot of them in the UK. A lot of people go and do media studies. But the British television industry in this country employs thousands of people, generates a fabulous amount of money, and exports stuff all over the world. So media students are very essential for the British economy. Just reminding myself of that. Now, regular viewers of Fully Charged will know that we've been up to Orkney a couple of times. Amazing, beautiful islands. For those of you who are ignorant about where Orkney is, you can find it on a map. It's little islands, or I think it's an archipelago of small islands just to the north, off the northern coast of Europe in the North Sea. And it's quite windy up there, like quite windy all the time. I've never been there when it isn't. It's windy. Orkney is windy. There aren't any trees. There really aren't. There's no big trees. They can't grow. They're supposed to get blown over before they get too big. There's a lot of wind. So there's a lot of wind turbines. Oh, I've just tapped the microphone accidentally. There's a lot of wind turbines there. I mean, really a lot. Like most farms have got one or two. There's really massive ones on the tops of hills. I mean, they generate they generate 100% of their electricity on the island. 100%, not a bit, not 10% or 3%, no, 100%. And they export the rest over a connection to the mainland, which isn't big enough. They've got to upgrade the connection because they're generating too much power and they've got nothing to do with it. So they're finding things to do with all this excess electricity. It is a beautiful place, and the air is fabulously clean. You really do notice it when you get there. You just breathe in and go, oh, that's different. That's not like Oxford Street in London. Well, the clever folks in Orkney have just launched the responsive flexibility. I can't even say it. That's how complicated it is. The responsive flexibility system on the islands. And I'm quoting here from a report on Electrek. This virtual energy system aims to leverage all available technologies, including battery systems and smart EV charging, to balance out any intermittent renewable energy generation. Orkney is already a net exporter of renewable energy. More than 100% of annual electricity demand on the islands is met by wind, solar, and wave and tidal generation. Now, if you don't know anything about this, if you go on to the Fully Charged show on YouTube, you can see we've been up there twice, and we've had a look at all these amazing things. The Tidal Energy Research Station in Orkney is amazing, where they're doing all these amazing tests of weird tidal turbines that look like submarines, and they're incredible. And they're generating like serious chunks of proper usable electricity, not like a tiddly bit. Now, this brilliant system, basically it's a kind of software system that's tying all these things together. It will include up to 500 domestic batteries. Those are batteries in people's houses. Up to 100 business and large-scale batteries. That was the first time I ever saw a big battery inside a container. Was on Orkney, really huge. I can't remember. It wasn't, by today's standards, not that big. It's a few years ago. It was like 10 megawatts, 10 megawatt hours or something like that. Up to 200 vehicle-to-grid chargers. I'm having one of those fitted in my house later this year. We'll be doing a show about it. Up to 600 new electric vehicles, which will be plugged into it. An island community-powered electric bus and e-bike integrated transport system. How brilliant is that? Up to 100 flexible heating systems and a large industrial-scale hydrogen fuel cell, which they've already got. They're using hydrogen, which they use the excess wind power to split the water, put it in tanks. They actually have to transport it on a diesel truck at the moment, but eventually this will be improved. And they run the fuel cell to generate power for all the ferries that come into the dock, so that the ferries don't run their diesel engines when they're stationary. And they've got this enormous amount of power they can run the ferries on, because ferries use a lot of electricity when they're not moving, because all the lighting and all the heating and conditioning and everything. And what they normally do is run their massive diesel engines that are burning bunker fuel while they're sitting still in a dock. So imagine how stinky that is. And here's some more key points that make Orkney a very special place. It is amazing. If you get the chance to go to Orkney, always grab it. 10% of homes in Orkney have micro-generation on them, so wind or solar. Mostly wind. It's amazing. Little wind turbines, little 5 and 10 kilowatt wind turbines in the garden. It really is common there. You see them all over the place. Orkney has 375% more EVs per home than the UK average. That's kind of noticeable. Orkney has 2 kilowatts of renewable energy capacity per home. So, I mean, not all homes have it. Of course they don't. But the fact is, if you split it down, 2 kilowatts of renewable energy capacity per home is 900% higher than the UK average. Orkney has 12 times more domestic renewable heat installations per home than in the UK average. And as I said before, annual renewable electricity generation is over 100% of total demand. So it's very exciting stuff. Amazing place. Do go. I'd love to. I'm hoping we can go back sometime, but we have been there twice, so we've been greedy. And talking of renewables, a report from the International Renewable Energy Agency has stated that strong gains in solar and wind energy last year have pushed renewable energy to now account for a third of global capacity. A third. I mean, that's a lot more than a quarter, isn't it? It's not as much as a half, but it's more than a quarter. It's certainly a lot more than most people assume. No, most people wouldn't know at all. People who live in the sensible real world, which is outside electric vehicles, electric vehicle obsession and renewable energy obsession, they might have seen a wind turbine and not know at all what it produces. I mean, in the UK, we're between 20 and 50% of our electricity, depending on the weather, is from renewables. We've been over 50% a couple of days last year, well over. Last year, 2018, the world added 170 gigawatts of renewable energy capacity. So global renewable energy capacity reached 2,351 gigawatts in total by the end of last year. So, I mean, it's obvious, if you don't know about these things, it's obvious that hydropower still accounts for over half of that. So half of that 2,351 gigawatts is from massive dams, which dam up massive valleys and in one or two instances flood whole cities and, change the environment to a dramatic amount, but do generate a lot of electricity. And there's a lot of resistance to hydropower, and I can understand why. But in places where it's been installed for a long time, Tasmania, interestingly, has an enormous amount of hydropower. Where there's a lot of mountains and rain, it's quite a good way of doing it. And they've done it in quite a sympathetic way in Tasmania. I saw a couple of their reservoirs. But the vast majority of gains, so where the increase came from in 2018 was just solar and wind installations, which accounted for 84% of last year's growth in all energy generating capacity. That's including everything. 84% of everything new that was installed last year was wind or solar. And that, I mean, it is huge. And with coal plants closing like high street shops in the UK, we are seeing a serious shift now. I think we really are. And it's increasing this year. Every year it just gets more. An increasing shift in energy generation. Now, I would put this down to China's massive expansion of wind and solar in the last couple of years. But there's an interesting bit of the report when I dug a bit deeper. Asia accounted for 61% of total new renewable energy installations in 2018. With a growth rate of 11.4%. That's kind of what I would have expected. But Oceania, and I had to Google what Oceania means. It means sort of Australia, really, the southern hemisphere, south of the equator. Oceania had the fastest growth rate at 17.7%, mainly driven by a huge spike in Australian solar capacity. So it's funny, having spent time in Australia recently and having listened to the less than intelligent and less than well-informed opinions of certain members of the current administration in Australia regarding electric cars in particular. Oh my God, they're just, I mean, obviously they hate them because they just want to hate them because they see them as a sort of threat to liberal capitalist freedom or something. I don't even know why they're frightened of electric cars anyway, but they're coming out with the most pathetic childish excuses anyway. But even with that, an enormous resistance from the current administration, solar is huge in Australia and growing fast. I mean, so many people have got it on their houses, it's not true, because it makes so much sense, because they're saving money. Anyway, I won't go on about it. But even with all that, let's keep it balanced, because I know I live in a privileged, elitist, renewable energy bubble of whatever. World energy demand has decreased slightly in the last 2 years. It's actually gone down. The total amount of energy that we consume has gone down in the last couple of years. But fossil fuel emissions as a result of power generation have increased, mainly due to China and India burning literal mountains of coal in filthy, inefficient, stupid old power stations. Most countries in Europe have reduced their carbon output, which is really good. The UK being a prime example of that. It's really gone down noticeably in the last 5 years. And their overall energy demand has dropped due to more efficient technology, really cool fridges and washing machines that use less, and heating uses less, and LED lights, better insulation, and obviously domestic batteries and solar have taken a bit of a chip off that, only just starting, but clearly that's going to carry on going ahead. So it's not all good news. I mean, we're still pumping out enormous amounts of filthy, toxic fumes into the air that we breathe, and animals breathe, and trees absorb as much as they can, but they haven't got a hope. So we've got to do something about it. And of course, we have one or two world leaders who actively deny we have a problem and tell stupid knuckle-dragging lies about wind turbines and cancer. Oh my God, I can't even talk about it. Let's not even talk about it. It's too dumb and boring. Wind turbines make noise and I don't even want to think about it. I don't even want to be able to do an impression. I don't want to. Not that I could if I could, but I'm just happy I can't. So that's enough. I don't want to end on a very low note. So let me tell you quickly about an amazing event that's coming to you in June. Well, it's coming to you if you live in the UK or nearby the UK, because I know a lot of people are coming from mainland Europe. Yes, you've guessed it, it's Fully Charged Live, and the closer we get to it and the more I see the plans, the more I really do now believe it is going to be epic. 7th, 8th and 9th of June, so not long, and tickets are already on sale and they are going fast. I'm just saying, I mean, no pressure, but I'd love you to come if you can. Half the Fully Charged team are actually away at the moment on an Easter break, which is, they've got to, because this is their last chance. Because from the moment they get back, it's going to be manic getting the whole enormous event together. There's going to be so many companies. It's amazing how many people have signed up to show their stuff there. A lot of amazing things on display. Really amazing cars. A lot of electric car conversions, of classic electric car conversions. I can't tell you about the one we just heard about today because it's so exciting. I'm going to blow a limb off my body with pure excitement. And lots of, now this is the thing we did last year, we had a lot of really good talks that people loved, but the venues we did them in were really noisy because there was also stands and other things going on all around. Not this time. We've got 2 dedicated theatres. We're using the entire building. It's a much, much bigger event, much bigger. Literally double the size, if not more than double. triple the size. So we've got special theatres that we will actually be able to hear the talks without all the excess noise. There's going to be amazing food, really wide selection of food. Over 3/4 of the people who came last year had combustion engine cars, of course, because that most people do. There were quite a lot of electric cars there. But this year, there's going to be a massive fleet of Teslas that are being driven by the Tesla Owners Club of the United Kingdom. I'm not going to say the number because it's mind-boggling, but a lot. So you've got a very good chance of getting a lift in a Tesla from the car park to the venue. And we've got electric buses this year, pure electric buses, which is much, much better. There's going to be amazing food. There's a beer tent, live music. I can't believe it. And of course, there's going to be test drives, loads of test drives that you will soon be able to pre-book. If you've bought tickets already, you'll get an email notification about booking that, and it will all be, we'll go on about it on Fully Charged, about how you book. So 3,000 test drives are planned over the weekend using the Stowe circuit, which is the one Jonny Smith drove the beautiful Aston Martin DB6 around in a recent episode. And of course, there are some brilliant episodes to come. Nordic road trips in a Tesla Model 3. Yeah, I drove a Tesla Model 3 from Copenhagen to Oslo. Amazing. I'm not going to talk about it now. We are sailing the seas in an electric ferry. Not a little bitty boat ferry. No, a massive ship that carries loads of trucks. There's episodes about electric rubbish trucks. I don't know, you call them different things all around the world. We call them dustbin lorries, garbage truck, waste disposal unit. I don't know, you can call them all sorts of things. Lots and lots of brilliant, cool electric cars. Jonny and I are zipping about, trying out all sorts of things. I'm looking forward to the Mercedes EQC test drive that's coming out, and a digger, a 100% electric plug-in battery digger, because we're going to be doing some legitimate digging at my house for a legitimate reason. I can't go into it at the moment, but it's very exciting. Loads of electric bikes, loads of electric vans. I'm excited about the digger though. And we're also going to shoot an update on the Tesla Powerwall episode that we did a couple of years ago. What it's like to live with a Tesla Powerwall. Has it reduced my electricity bill? Yes, enormously. Does it work? Yes, brilliantly. All that and more coming soon on Fully Charged. And of course, new podcasts with Jonny Smith and numerous special guests are coming soon. So why not subscribe to this podcast using your own special, better than anyone else's podcast catcher that you use on your own special mobile device or whatever else you use to listen to it. And finally, I'm going to shut up very soon, but finally, we are opening a special YouTube channel that is for podcasts and extra weird bits. We haven't fully 100% decided on the name of the channel yet, but that will launch very soon to great fanfare. So you'll be able to listen to this podcast on YouTube, which we've been told a lot of people do, and I accept that. I'm not going to judge it. So that's it. Please do subscribe to this and to Fully Charged YouTube, and have a look at the Patreon link if you want to. No pressure on that at all. As always, if you have been, thank you for listening.